Now, if in the words, I'm bored, are echoing around your house this summer, and it's not your adult children, it's the kids, but parents, we really do need to keep the kids entertained. Do we need to keep the kids entertained all day?
We do. Speech and language therapist and mum of three, Emma O'Leary, explains how boredom can be a good thing and how to encourage independent play. Emma, we do not hear this enough, how boredom is a good thing.
Yes.
It's good to be bored. We're losing the ability to be bored.
Absolutely, I'm a firm believer in it. I think sometimes we put immense pressure on ourselves as parents that we're meant to be entertaining our kids and keeping them busy. But actually, boredom is very much a good thing. I think it can sometimes be the slightly irritating in between where kids are figuring out what they're going to do or what to play with. Saying that independent play or playing, solo or with siblings without adult intervention, it is a skill, and sometimes we need to support them in that. So it can be a case of setting them up or giving them some options or giving them some ideas, but not taking over and leading the play, and need to, be a part of it for the entirety.
Listen, as a parent, I'm fed up with summer holidays already because, it is a constant. The kids wanting snacks, wanting to do stuff. And you can see, we're talking about it today, the front of the Irish Examiner, you can see parents are giving phones and iPads to kids to just try and get a minute's break.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about independent play, and it's listen, it's all good and well playing with your kids, but it is quite draining. And if you're trying to, if you're at work or you're trying to do some housework, how difficult or how, is there a way to kind of teach kids to play independently?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, it is a skill, and it's something that we need to set them up for, and it's something that they need to learn to do. So we do it in small increments where we might do something like set something up or take out or start a tower like this and say, OK, I've started it. And let's see if you can do one that's as big as mine. I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea. I'm going to check in and see what you've done in 10 minutes. Okay. And then you extend it out further and further. And I think the other thing...
challenges almost.
Yeah, like small challenges to begin with to kind of get them going. And I think it's as well about having the right types of toys. So I've just kind of brought a few things here today that are like open-ended toys. So there's no right way. For example, this is called KAPLA. There's no right way to play with it. It's the kind of thing you can buy for a child who's 3 or 4, but when they're 9 and 10, they're still going to be playing with it, but in a very different way than they did when they were 3 or 4. Same with things like Connetix. So they're like magnetic blocks. Yeah, and we use these with smaller kids who are 2, 3, but then as kids get older and they get to kind of 7, 8, 9, maybe they're playing and building structures that are more elaborate. They're putting minifigures into, or the likes of the Air Toobz. And there's a shop in town, Stephen's Green, Cogs Toys and Games, and they kind of have a lot of these type of open-ended toys. They're also online, but I like them because they really find toys that are a bit different. Okay. They're not the kind of toys you're going to buy that are going to be stuck at the end of a toy basket and never used or never played with. And look, we're all guilty of going in and finding something, and it's a big... exciting, flashy toy, and then it gets forgotten about. You want toys that you invest in, that you buy once and you buy well, and that 6, 7, 8 years later, kids are still playing with them, but like I said, in a different way, because there isn't a specific, correct, exact, there's lots of different ways to play with that type of toy. So
is that what defines an open-ended toy?
Yeah.
My son loves these, the magnet tiles.
Yes.
But I do feel I have a lot of that, what you've just described, where we'll get the bright, flashy toy and it's all interesting for 2 minutes and then it's forgotten. So you want to be getting stuff like this that's open-ended, which is that it grows with the child, is it?
Exactly, so that they have, in years, I joke about these, the Connetix. My 7-year-old, we came back from holidays recently and he was like, going into the basket, hugging them. I was laughing because he didn't have them when he was away. Because it's just coming back to something that he really enjoys, and he will sit and he will play with those on his own with his Lego figures for 45 minutes. He doesn't need me to be there doing it. And then, there's times where we play with our kids or we're out the back and we do things with them. But that element of being able to do things solo and doing things on their own is very important.
And toy rotation helps with that, doesn't
it?
That idea of novelty. When you take the toy away for a few weeks and then they see it again, it's like, oh my God, it's brand new.
Do you know, I always give the example of this. If you have a wardrobe full of clothes at home and you go in, you're like, I'm going to something tonight, absolutely nothing to wear. It's the exact same thing. If kids have a playroom stuffed full of toys, relatable, and they go in and you go into the playroom now and find something to do. Well, that first of all, you're setting yourself up for failure. Give kids options. So say, we could do a challenge, a tower challenge, or maybe will we build a gigantic zoo? And you're giving them an option or an idea. You're planting a seed. You might start for for the first 5 minutes and then step away and leave them at it.
So, but yeah, how difficult or easy is it to step away without them constantly going, oh no, will you not stay with me? Will you help? You know.
So like I said, you build them up to it. You say, I'm going to make a cup of tea, I'll come back and check on what you've done in 5 minutes. So that is a skill. That takes time.
Building is a big part, like construction, building these blocks, building these blocks. Like, is that something that you're seeing is a form of independent play that kids enjoy?
Well, it's a great, construction is a really great skill because they have to use obviously fine motor skills, like, you know, they have to have balance, there's planning, you know. And
the older you get, probably the better they get at it. They get more, they get more reward from it, I suppose.
And that's why you see kids are so obsessed with the likes of Lego and things like that. And I brought that game there, Brick Like This, which I sometimes use because I have 3 kids, where there's literally cards and they have a certain number of Lego pieces, and then you just give them the challenge, OK, let's have a race, just have a race between you and see who can build the picture first.
OK.
And funnily, like, you'll start them with that, but then they'll just start to make their own games up and create their own games.
So they need guidelines to start. And I think another thing that we often don't talk about enough and often don't realise is that having too much is detrimental. So we can think, oh, we'll have a full playroom now, we'll have all the bits, everything sitting out, they'll have loads of fun in there, and actually they go in and get overwhelmed and they just leave.
And that's what we're saying again about the toy rotation. Less is definitely more. So taking away things, putting them in the box, put them into the spare room or the garage, and then letting them reappear again 4 weeks later. I mean, keep the things, the core things that you know that they're going to play with all of the time. So, for example, if they play with Connetix, don't take them away if they're working well. But, you know, things that maybe are at the bottom or are being forgotten about, those kind of things that we can take away. And then when they reappear 4 weeks later, all of a sudden they're new and they're interesting again. Because, you know, parents will come to me, you know, when I'm in clinic and say to me, oh, like, they just walk on their toys. They just, like, they're in the playroom just walking on things, but they're not actually actively playing with anything. So having less is definitely a big bonus.
You know,
and having simpler things.
Permission for me to throw out loads of toys. I love that. Or give them away.
What's this one? Right.
So this is Air Toobz. Again, that's from Cogs Toys and Games. So it's like another one for building.
Right.
Now, we only have a short track here.
Are you going to catch it?
Probably not.
So, like, you can pop these in, but kids can build big, long, elaborate tracks of all different lengths.
Yeah, we have a basket of attachments down here, so you can make this really exciting for
and
them.
elaborate. We weren't going to,
Because is it important in the day of AI and kids not reading as much anymore?
Yeah.
Simple toys like this can actually encourage problem solving.
Absolutely.
And use their imaginative play an awful lot more.
I say this to my kids all of the time, you know, because it's hard to be the parent that's holding back, that's not giving screens as much, or who has very kind of firm guidelines, you know, boundaries in place around how we're using TVs, screens, tablets. And I'm like, your brain needs to develop, and all of these are such an important component, and play is such an important component of development, social skills, you know, even siblings at home trying to navigate how to build this together without killing each other, or taking turns to put it up and who's going to put the piece at the top. All of that is negotiation, it's language skills, it's like essential skills for life.
Away as a parent, like as a speech and language therapist, are you seeing a drop-off a little bit in this with the more phones and tablets coming in?
That's been a gradual, like, you know, even from when I would have started working clinically in Dublin many years ago, waiting rooms are very quiet, you know, outside people are sitting on phones, it's quiet, people aren't interacting. But I'd said that to you before. I think there's a general, like, socially, like, out in the world, kids are expected to be quiet now. So,
we're getting, like, what do they call it, a comfort crisis, you know, where we have, like, all the kids hypnotised and quiet on the phones and screens, but we're missing that tension, that necessary tension of boredom and negotiation and conflict even.
Yeah, and even if you're out in a restaurant with your kids are allowed to laugh. They're allowed to be a little bit rowdy. They don't have to be sit quiet.
Well, not when Alan Hughes is in the restaurant beside you, because he's one of the people who comes in and gives out to these kids.
Oh, no! He's heartbroken, Alan.
That's conflict. That was waiting to be knocked down. I'm sorry, that was waiting to be knocked down. That's kids' conflict right there. Now, if we were at home, I'd be whacking them. Well, this is what it's all about, isn't it?
But the kids would love that. They'll knock it down and rebuild it.
Yeah,
Emma O'Leary, thank you so much for doing this. I am taking this home with me, not for the kids, but for myself.
And for everyone in the audience.
Really enjoyed that. Right, coming up on tomorrow's show.
From Cody Ugly to Bodyguard, actor Adam Garcia is going to be joining us.
Wow, looking forward to that. We're going to be catching up with Rhys McClenaghan and Mona McSharry.
Plus, we'll be chatting with a man who's on a mission to reclaim Irish place names. We'll see you tomorrow from 7.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. This is great fun.